things that have been said. We need to find a finish for this conflict, and the two-state solution is the only possible solution today. And the main victims are, again, the women and the children, and Palestinians have suffered a lot in this sense. And we have the blockage of food aid is very urgent, and I call on all parliamentarians, specifically women, to open these borders so that the humanitarian aid can arrive for everyone who needs it. And then for the two-state solution, if we want to reach this solution, we need to make sure that international law is respected. And I would call on all parliamentarians to support this. We have a contribution on item the point 15 about the initiatives and the putting in place of the two-state solution with the Global Alliance for the Two-State Solution and an international conference for this, which is sought by the resolution of 2024-7981, and France will co-preside with Saudi Arabia this conference, and this is our contribution from France. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the Forum of Women Parliamentarians. Thank you for Uzbekistan. I would like to talk about the impact of the conflict on the Palestinian women. One of the refugees, the Palestinian refugees. In fact, the impact of this conflict made the Palestinians bury more than 21,000 women, and 19,000 women are now permanently injured ever since the beginning of that collective genocide. And in fact, more than 42,000 women have lost their right to health services because of the stopping of the services of UNRWA, and this is one of the most biggest crises. More than 1 million women are now living in catastrophic conditions, including the women of my family that have become refugees for the second time in 70 years. There are women who are imprisoned in the prisons now, and we have also women who are arrested as hostages. Of course, I cannot talk about the Israeli crimes that have been going on for 8 decades. In fact, whether we're talking about Gaza, West Bank, and occupied Jerusalem, we have there an Israeli occupation ever since 1948 and up until this date, and we have a huge impunity. The Palestinian women has been paying the brunt of this conflict ever since. As women in Palestine, those who were not killed under shelling, they are killed because of hunger, because of diseases, and because we are being burnt by Israelis, and we are being forcefully deported as it is happening in Gaza and the West Bank. We would like to call upon you to interfere, to stop that genocide, and to make humanitarian access possible, and to protect UNRWA as well as humanitarian organizations. And please stop that Israeli occupation. Please hold Israel accountable, and please impose sanctions on Israel. Please put an end to that illegal occupation of Palestine. Palestine is entitled to have a legal state with Jerusalem as a capital. Please give the autodetermination right to our population. This is the only track towards the two-state solution. There's no justice, no peace without putting an end to the Israeli occupation, which endangers international peace and security. When it comes to the draft resolution and to the point related to elections, I would like to say that the international community should put pressure on Israel to hold elections throughout Palestine and all over the territories of Palestine, especially in Eastern Jerusalem. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have the pleasure to take the floor and to be present with all these women in this room. First and foremost, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the IPU and to Uzbekistan hosting this assembly. Thank you for your kind organization. Allow me to talk about the Israeli occupation of Palestine. It is a long-standing occupation that throughout years has had a devastating impact on all parties, especially women and girls who are suffering of this impact of this violent conflict. Because women and girls are suffering from all sorts of harm and violence and the loss of a catering husband. They are unable to defend themselves and to defend their families. This is why we have to start searching for solutions for these women and girls. And in our perspective, the two-state solution is the best possible solution to secure a fair future for both populations. We cannot talk about this solution without taking into consideration the gender dimensions of this solution, especially in the process of negotiation. This is why including women in the peace processes and enabling them to play a vital role is something very important to guarantee justice and equality. In fact, the sufferings of women is not limited to the conflict zones and to the humanitarian dimensions, because we have additional challenges as a result of gender violence. Women in wars do bear the brunt of violence, of deportation, of the loss of their loved ones, and also they are subject to all sorts of sexual exploitation and marginalization. We do believe that peace that does not include the participation of women is going to be a weak and fragile peace. And we do believe that to have any sustainable solution, we have to involve women in negotiations and in decision-making processes. We do realize perfectly well that once, or in fact, women and children are subject to the biggest possible violations in Israel. Even the elderly people are suffering in Palestine. We do believe that we need to protect women and girls so that they would have a vital role to play in peace and security. Thank you.
Thank you, dear President. Greetings to everybody. Firstly, I would like to say that it's been an honor to take part in the drafting process of the resolution with 6 co-relators, rapporteurs, and it is really the role of parliamentarians to support the solution to the Palestinian issue. We recognize that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not just a regional conflict, it is a global issue with profound consequences for peace and the right to international law. And it really shows that the only way forward for peace is the solution of 2 states based on the borders of 1967, the respect of international law and the mutual consideration between Israel and Palestine. The use of parliamentarians in this process is essential because with our various different functions, we can really make sure that there is a dialogue leading to the respect of human rights and the dignity of people, justice and legality. I would like to highlight some aspects of this resolution, that the approach on and its approach towards women and more vulnerable groups. We also have a key effect on the children in Palestine, and this leads to poverty and means that we have a lack of access to essential services. So we have to adopt laws that are gender sensitive to protect the rights of women and children, and we need to protect their participation in the peace process. We can't have a durable peace without the participation of women in these processes. The women have really important role to play in the access to services. We are leaders and we are protectors of peace, and we are leaders in a real change. Also, this resolution is strengthening or calls for a strengthening of direct diplomacy to create trust, to promote cooperation, particularly on education, health, and the environment, as well as human security, and to support all of the initiatives that are shared between the Israelis and Palestinians. And to conclude, this text provides a roadmap that is directed towards action, towards taking definitive action. And it invites us as parliamentarians to carry out a responsible leadership, responsible towards humanity, with a vision to support a political solution that is fair and peaceful. It invites us, and I invite all of you to support this, not just in solidarity towards those who are suffering at the moment, but also in a step towards a safer planet and a safer region. So this is a resolution for all. Thank you very much.
May peace be upon you. I would like to thank Uzbekistan for its kind organization of this assembly and for its hospitality. I would like also to thank Mexico for the past session. I would like to thank all the countries who believe in the fairness of this humanitarian cause, the Palestinian cause. I would like to thank South Africa for what it has called for against Israel before the International Court of Justice for its collective genocide. I think that the two-state solution in these circumstances it's considered as a luxury. Maybe we have to ask ourselves a question related to the role of international parliaments in advancing towards a two-state solution as an international choice to put an end to this conflict currently. I think that we have to take serious stances against that genocide in Gaza. What is happening currently, the genocide taking place currently, that reoccupation that is taking place within the territories of before 1967 is very shameful. In fact, the international community should stand against what is happening in Gaza. There's a huge difficulty that people are going through in Gaza. Refugees should be supported to return back to their territories. Based on Resolution 194. As parliamentarians, we have to go beyond condemning and denouncing in order to take practical steps towards putting an end to the occupation and towards international peace and security. Thank you. May peace be upon you. Excellencies, members of the delegations, dear participants, dear organizers. First of all, allow me to say that when we defend the rights of women parliamentarians to promulgate legislations to build their countries, especially in occupied Palestine, it is to say that they have to go back first to their country, Palestine, in order to exercise their parliamentary rights in Palestine. We have to listen to a lot of parliamentary women voices in Israel calling for stopping the war and stopping the illegal violations in Palestine. The Sultanate of Oman has always supported the freedom of people and the right to autodetermination and their parliamentary rights to give their opinions and to take part in sustainable development in their country all over the world, especially in occupied Palestine. The cause of peace in the Middle East remains one of the strongest challenges for the international community. And despite the complexities, the two-state solution is still the more balanced choice because it guarantees for the Palestinians to have their states based on the frontiers of 1967 with Eastern Jerusalem as a capital. Peace is not an impossible choice. It is a shared, a common responsibility. And instead of managing the conflict, we have to solve that conflict radically so as to guarantee a brilliant future for the Palestinians. And we have a shared responsibility because we do represent the parliamentary voice. This is why we would like to call for adopting that draft resolution that we have in our hands today. We would like to call upon you to support that draft resolution and to adopt it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the IPU and Uzbekistan for hosting this assembly. Saudi Arabia has always had a clear stance with regards to the Palestinian cause. The King of Saudi Arabia and head of the Council of Ministers has always confirmed this stance. In fact, the King insists that Saudi Arabia will never stop working for a Palestinian state, one that would be independent with Eastern Jerusalem as a capital, and that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will not be having any diplomatic relations with Israel without that. And the kingdom, ever since 1967, has been calling for a Palestinian state with Eastern Jerusalem, the Palestinian territory, while preserving the rights, the legal rights of Palestinians, including women and girls, while preserving their rights, respecting them, putting an end to violence, providing healthcare services, education, protection, right to live peacefully. And this is why women should have their fundamental rights, including healthcare, education, clean water, and respect. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia states that its stance is uncontroversial and that peace and security to all Palestinians, including women and girls, cannot happen without the Palestinian population taking their legal rights. And as parliamentary women, we have to work in solidarity and we have to stand side by side together with our dear sisters in Palestine in order to guarantee their rights. Thank you so much. Peace be upon you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, may peace be upon you. I have the pleasure at the beginning of my intervention to express my pleasure to be with you in this assembly. I have the honor to join this group that is discussing one of the most important resolutions that is going to result from the IPU for this session, which is the resolution related to the role of parliaments in advancing two-state solution in Palestine. And this comes at a time where the Palestinian cause is facing dangerous developments because of that collective genocide taking place in Gaza against the Palestinian people by the Israeli occupation. We cannot but mention the war crimes taking place in the West Bank as well. Despite the fact that the draft resolution provides four principles mentioned in all resolutions related to the Palestinian cause, we do drastically need to re-insist on these principles, especially at a time where there are attempts to violate the rights of Palestinians, especially the rights to have their own state with Jerusalem as a capital. I have read the draft resolution and I found the paragraph number 13 that is about legislations and policies taken into consideration the gender dimension so as to protect women and girls and their dignity and that prohibits gender violence. Maybe you do agree with me that a sentence as such may be convenient in ordinary times and in normal times. However, this is not really convenient at a time where genocides and crimes are being committed in Gaza on a daily basis against women and girls in Palestine. In fact, the Israeli occupation has been committing gender violence against the Palestinian people. And I do believe that we have to elaborate on items related to Palestinian women in this draft resolution. We cannot make the aggressor and the victims equal. And in this context, I would call that the draft resolution would call for responding to the needs of the Palestinian women in Gaza and the West Bank while establishing funds that would cover for the needs of the Palestinian widows who have lost their caterers, their husbands, because of the aggression. And I do call for the draft resolution to call Israel to release the Palestinian women imprisoned in the Israeli prisons while providing them with the necessary assistance. And there should be also a representation of to be created instead of the IPU committee on the Middle East issues. Thank you so much for your kind attention.